was about to take some notes or make a puppet. What do you think I should do? I think I should make a puppet. Make a puppet that you could make too and tell a story. Just like, oh yeah, Hans Christian Andersen. I've told so many of his stories, and I have to tell you the truth. I didn't even know this was one of his. And it is one that we have been telling for a very long time in such a variety of ways, particularly for those of us who grew up not liking this particular vegetable. And then as I grew, and maybe you too, I liked it. Just have lots of jokes around it. I remember one in particular about peas and carrots and minding your P's and Q's and all those things. And anyway, this is a story about a pea and no carrots. And I was kind of curious about that because for me, as a kid, when I had peas, they were soft. So why would they bother the princess? I gave it away. This is a story about a princess and vegetables. And who wouldn't be a prince or a princess for whatever that means today if you ate your vegetables and you were really strong. But for today, I'm going to take you to this tiny little book here, which is the complete stories written by Hans Christian Andersen, they think. But actually, this was one that his mom used to tell him. And I don't know if she told it to him and she made it up, or my guess is because lots of things happen this way, that she heard it from someone else and perhaps her mom. So it's one of those hand me down to generation stories. But as I said to you earlier, I didn't even know it was one of his. And it has become a really classic story. It was one of the first he ever wrote down. He wrote it down in 1835 by my almost 200 years ago, not quite, but almost. And it became one of the first that was ever published. And it is called The Princess and the Pea. But before we get there, I would like to show you maybe a really simple way that you can make a puppet like I made, only a little simpler than mine, because my puppet, the princess, has been around in many stories. Sometimes she's not a princess. Sometimes she's just like me. As a matter of fact, that's who she was made to be, a puppet that looked like me, not like I look now. So I'm going to gently put down this great big book, and you might hear a thud because gentle is not the way it is, but that was a good thud, right? And that might be a good sound to remember. Thud. Can you say that? Thud. Great. Now, let me show you another story. Because this story was written, that was a softer thud. This story was written by someone who did a takeoff of our story for today. And I want to show it to you because it teaches an important lesson. I think actually like the lesson in this story, but slightly different. This is a story called The Princess and the Peanut. And I'm very fond of it because it teaches a great lesson. It teaches us that some folks need to be a little more careful, and we in exchange need to be very careful for them. And it is about a princess who's allergic to peanuts. So if any of you out there are allergic to anything, you know it can be dangerous. And it isn't like something you wear. You don't have a big I am allergic to peanuts on your forehead. You might not even know. So we have to be really careful and cautious what we give to people. Kind of the same as the message in our story. We don't really know that much. One, until we ask questions, and two, until we make sure that our friends are safe. So I have somewhere, oh, it's right behind me. I made a peanut puppet and I wanted to share it with you just in case you see an elephant around who's hungry. And here he is. This is The Princess and the Peanut. We're not going to tell it today. It is the same story. And it is a love story and quite sweet. Here's my peanut. Hi there. And I am not allergic to peanuts, but I love some people that are. So I am very careful, and other allergies as well. So Princess and the Peanut, written by Sue Gans Schmidt. And it's a beautiful, beautifully illustrated story and teaches us to be careful. And also, like our other story, that's not very interesting. There's the princess. Pretty good looking, huh? Just like all of us, inside and out. So I'm going to put down my Peanut, I hope you're not hungry. And I hope if you're allergic, you carry everything important with you. And get to the story already, Marilyn. So another small, he will not make a thud, but I'm putting him down there. And this one over here on my growing pile of books that I love and will take care of later. But the heroine of our story is made out of a box. So maybe you have a box. Maybe you have a picture of you. Maybe you do. And I would put it right there. And then guess who you have a puppet of? You. hmm But maybe you don't have a picture. Maybe you don't know what to do. So here is an idea for you. So this is what I want you to think about. Take a Post-it. Can be any kind. This is the ones I found when I went around the corner to my desk. And put it like that. Why did I do that? Because with a little very easy care, you can make a puppet here too. And maybe you're prince and or princess, because there's both of these in our story. Maybe they have blonde striped hair. Who has blonde striped hair? Probably nobody I know. And again, it can be a blue piece of paper. It can be anything. It could be a photo of yourself. So many things this could be. And do you hear that great sound? That's called the ripping of the paper sound. What is she doing down there? She's making hair. So fun. All right, there it is. And I, of course, would remind you that a piece of tape at this point would be a great thing. But you don't really need it. That is the cool part. So there she is, our princess. What? No face. Let's give her one. Can draw it on. Miguel, because it's a love story, remember. Don't you forget that. And just a very classic mouth. So now we have a puppet. If we wanted, we could take the time to make a prince, but I'd really rather take time to make a story. There's a couple of parts in this story. I'm going to tell it pretty much in the classic telling, which is how Hans Christian Andersen would have told it. He might have even had which he liked to do, by the way, got a whole bunch of kids from his area, and he would tell the story. He did not use puppets, to the best of my knowledge, although he did tell a great story called The Puppeteer that I like to tell people as well. So, could you make a puppet like that? You know what? Now that I think about it, let's make the prince. Now, there may be lots of people in your life who act princely. What does that mean? That means in my world, and hopefully yours, that they take care of people. You hear that noise? That's me ripping some more paper for the prince's hair. You'll be astonished at how much the prince and the princess look alike. And of course, he has a buzz cut. You like it? You don't? Oh. Well, when you make your own, you'll like that one. This is my prince. And his hair, now it could be that this puppet is either boy or girl. This is our prince. And I'm going to just start out his story before I tell it with other puppets. Here he is. This prince in our story and in the story told with boxes wants to marry a princess, a real princess. Now, what does that mean? Now, if you were to define a princess, or I was to define a princess, I would say a princess would be someone who is good and kind and liked to take care of people and happened to have been born to a king and a queen, because that's the way we define prince and princesses. They were of a royal family. And in Hans Christian Andersen's lifetime, that was the way it was. And the person who ran the kingdom and or queendom, as I like to say, was a descendant, a child of the king and the queen who were married. Lots of other complications came in, of course, don't they always? But that's what a prince and a princess was. So in our telling of the story and all the other prince and princesses story, and I got a great one for you next time, the prince and the princess usually are looking for someone to fall in love with, to marry, to live happily ever after. Perchance you remember Cinderella and the prince who was looking for a princess. And did he find one? Eventually he did. But it was a long trip. And she wasn't a princess. and they fell in love. Our story is a little bit different than that, and I think it's time for you to meet the principal characters. Catch that? Principal characters. And I'd like to introduce them to you, but in order to do that, I'm going to go backstage. It won't take me very long. I'm just going to walk all the way over there. I have a little traveling music if you don't mind. Here I go. Oh, yes, here I am, all the way back here. Well, hey, nice to see you. You stuck around. Well, here it is. This is the prince. I'd like you to meet him. He has been on a journey. Maybe I should let you tell him tell it himself. Once there was a prince, and the prince wanted to marry a real princess. As a matter of fact, truth told, he had to, according to his country's constitution. The prince had to marry a princess. And he looked everywhere. He traveled all over. Here I come again, looking for a princess. He wandered from town to town, and everywhere he went, he would look for a princess. Perchance there's one out there. But there wasn't. And the prince traveled a long, long time. And finally, after a long voyage, he went home, very sad because he had not found a princess to marry. That night, lo and behold, in the middle of a storm, there came to the door a bedraggled, wet, and messy young woman. She knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. He went to answer it. "Well, hello? Oh, please, can I come in? I am cold and I am so wet. And I am a princess and I need to get some rest. Well, first, why don't we sit down and have something to eat and you can dry off and I will get you a nice warm robe." And he did. Such a kind prince. He liked that young woman. But remember, he had to marry a princess. So after they had talked and got to know each other a little better, "I am so tired. Is it possible that I could stay here for the night?" He said, "Well, of course. Uh, we are very, very welcoming people here." So he went to tell his mama about the young woman who had come to the door, claiming that she was a princess. By the way, did I tell you that I was a princess? Well, you don't look like a princess. What does that mean? Well, you're all draggled and wet. Maybe you just need a good night's sleep. Well, of course. Now, the old queen, played by me, knew that the prince really wanted to marry a real princess, but she had one quiet way to find out. For as you know, princesses are very, very sensitive. So after she had sent the prince off to get a good night's princely rest, the queen did something that she knew would certainly prove whether or not this young woman was a princess or was just telling a story. So she went into the kitchen and she found a pea and she put it underneath the very mattresses. And then she put on one layer of mattresses, and then she put on another layer of mattresses, and then she put on not one, not two, not three, but four blankets. And then she put on, a fragrant scarf. And then she put on another layer of mattresses. And then she put on yet another layer of mattresses. And then she put on, you got it, another layer of mattresses, or two, or perchance three, and then seven and eight and nine and 10 until the bed was piled way high up. And then she called out to the princess who claimed to be a princess, but no one actually believed her. "Your bed is ready." And then so the tired and not yet wet anymore young woman went into, good grief, look at that. Well, the old queen smiled and said, "Have a good night's rest." The young woman climbed all the way to the tippy top, so many mattresses, thinking how sweet, and she tried to go to sleep. And she tossed and she turned, and the night came. Early in the morning, she came off of that bed and went out to see what was happening. And then she went down to breakfast, and the old queen said, "Well, how are you?" She said, "Oh, I couldn't sleep a wink. I think there was a great big rock in my bed." Oh, the old queen smiled with delight. "Really? Oh, I am all black and blue." Oh, and then alone, she knew that the young woman was in fact a princess, because in those days, and sometimes today, princesses are so very sensitive. And the story goes on that, of course, the prince and thou, the proven princess, married joyously in the kingdom, and prince became the king, and the princess became his beloved queen, and they lived quite happily ever after, sensitively to their people's needs. And of course, they had sensitive children, and we go on and on and on. Curiously, I'm kind of wondering, and perchance you are too, what happened to that pea? Well, let's take a peek. First, we'll have to take off all of those blankets and all of those pillows and all of those mattresses and pile them up carefully somewhere. And then we'll take out the pea. Oh dear. Oh my. Would you look at that? The pea is all black and blue. You bet. Not easy being a pea. I'm very sensitive myself. And that, ladies and gentlemen of all ages, is one of Hans Christian Andersen's favorite stories. Perchance it was his favorite because he was told to him by his mama. Or perchance it was his favorite because he loves peas. Or maybe he didn't. Or maybe he made a really good split pea soup. But for you, I want you to be really sensitive to other people's needs, to pay attention to them, whoever they are. We are all royalty, every single one of us, because we are here and we get to take care of each other. Thanks for coming by. Have a good day, a warm day filled with soup and stories.